Well, I want to thank you all for coming today. We represent the Orange County chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council. And to my right is Joseph Murphy of Turner Construction. He's Director of Sustainability over there. Lindsay Ingalls from LPA Architecture. My name is Chris Christie. I also work in the design, build, construction. And yes, every day I get asked if I'm related to the governor of New Jersey. So, and I'm excited about it because I can't wait for the attention I'll probably get when he is president. So I'm very excited. So anybody out here been through any of the homes yet? Pretty impressive stuff that these young kids have such a passion for, huh?
Very much so.
Okay. And what about today in our audience? What businesses or interests do we have represented today? Any architects or engineers out there? Okay. Any energy managers? How about marketing, city planners? How about some shout outs? What do you guys do? Energy audits? Okay. All right, great. Well, we always like to get a little splash on who we're talking to, so thank you very much. So today is kind of a backdrop. We're going to talk about what the U.S. Green Building, or who the U.S. Green Building Council is, what their mission is, and why we're here today. And it's kind of a backdrop of the discussion. It kind of revolves around several issues. One is, for years, the architectural and engineering community and the development community have operated in silos, meaning that one or two of those interests would get together, start planning a project, and then before they brought in the plumbing and mechanical designer or the landscape architect, a lot of decisions had been made that would compromise the ability of the project to change for the better in terms of environmental planning or energy usage. The second backdrop today is comes from the general contracting community. There's always a belief there, or has been for a long time, because I've seen it for over 35 years, is, well, we've always done it that way. So why would we want to change and adopt any new principles? The third one is special interest. And after we get done today, you're going to see, well, this makes all the sense in the world. Why doesn't everybody build and design like this? And I would say to you, it's all political. I'll go down kicking and screaming until I'm forced to by governmental mandates. So with that as our background, the U.S. Green Building Council is not a government institution. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, so therefore it's mission-driven for a cause. And that cause is to promote sustainable design and construction principles. We're also realize that you can't do this in a vacuum, so we're interested in the triple bottom line, meaning we take into account the interests of the people, planet, and profit. So since we're a mission-driven organization to promote sustainable design and construction principles, our target audience for people who are passionate about our goals come from all these industries. So not just architects, engineers, or builders, but landscapers, interior designers, facility managers, material suppliers. So it's a very wide range of people that enjoy our mission. Yes, you can see it's a multi-states. All 50 states are represented by the U.S. Green Building Council. We're also in 130 countries. One of the international things I think we're most interested in lately is they've just signed their third memorandum of understanding with China, and it's sort of U.S. Green Building Council, or their Green Initiative Council. We promote this, our sustainable design and construction principles with our LEED APs. I don't know if anybody heard about in the LEED rating system. LEED rating system, simply put, is taking building code, which is the absolute minimum that you have to accomplish in order to walk in a building, and we're taking it up and we're asking developers and builders, take it up a notch, take it up 20, 30, 40%. Let's do something that's right for the planet, right for the people, and not just continually drain our natural resources. probably the greatest benefit of the LEED rating system also is that it is a third-party verification system. So it's not just the city or county or the owner or developer, but it's a third party who doesn't have any financial interest in the project. Okay, now I'm going to turn this over to Lindsay, and she's going to start with a comment that I just mentioned a minute ago, that there's a lot of rating systems out there, and we're just trying to move the needle a little bit, and she's going to tell you how far the needle could go.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, if you take a look at this slide that I put together, you can see there's a lot of different rating systems. It's not just about USGBC and LEED. We've of course got California Green Building Code, that's in there. If you take the optional Tier 2 approach, that actually parallels LEED Silver. A lot of people don't know that. But that's only if you take the optional going above and beyond within the code. So that's just a little bit above standard, right? And then you've got things that are much more simplified and not a whole building approach, like Energy Star. It's fantastic. It reduces our energy usage. It makes sure that we know what we're doing. And then you can go way above and beyond and look at Living Building Challenge. Now the thing is, we're all striving for sustainability, but true sustainability is when you get to at least neutral. Right now we're still consuming more than we're providing, right? Even at the top tier of LEED and going LEED Platinum, you know, you can get LEED Platinum and still be using a bit more, using a bit more energy than you're producing. You could be taking more water than you're replenishing, right? Living Building Challenge, that's trying to get to that neutral point. But what none of these rating systems do yet is actually get to the regenerative points. And that's where we really need to be, is feeding back into the environment and replenishing has been being depleted for so many years now. So we're approaching that slowly. So although LEED is great, it's really just a beginning step in a long process. And that's what this slide is showing, is just that there's other rating systems out there. We're not trying to promote one or the other or anything like that. We just want everybody to come together, get involved, make a difference, and get this in motion. So going back to LEED, because we are the U.S. Green Building Council, I feel like I should at least explain what it is and how it works. I'm gonna move the microphone real quick. Oops. So the first thing you have is our LEED rating system, which is put together by the U.S. Green Building Council. That's what this nonprofit is all about. They get together this reference manual, and it explains how you're gonna make your building green, what their standards are, what you have to achieve to get the points for their rating system. And then you could score from certified to silver to gold, and platinum is at the top. And then just for comparison, like I said, there's other rating systems. If you're gonna do Living Building Challenge, usually if you do Living Building Challenge, you're gonna get LEED Platinum. It just kind of goes hand in hand. So they do work together. Living Building Challenge actually did split off from the U.S. Green Building Council a long time ago, because they're like, hey, you know, we're not making a big enough difference. We want to take this a very large step further, and that's what that is. It's worth looking into. So anyway, LEED has the reference guides, like I explained. They also have the rating system, which is the number of points. And so, like I said, that's what gets you to the different levels, gold, silver, platinum. And then there's also education programs to teach people, how are we going to do this? How does this apply to your building? Why is this important? And to advance people's education, because if you keep doing the things the way that you're doing, you're not going to get any farther now, are you? So we need to get the latest technology, the latest ideas, the latest information and data out there to people so that they can use this and apply it to their buildings. And then the other half of it, which is now a different entity but a sister company, or a sister nonprofit I should say, is GBCI. And so when you're doing a building, you need a LEED accredited professional to be helping you along, to be, you know, showing you where you're going to get your points, how you're going to plan out your building and design your building to achieve those points and get the certification level that you choose if you're an owner, a developer, or whoever the client is, right? And so GBCI is the one that certifies those professionals and says, yes, you really do know your stuff. Yes, you really can help people to get their buildings to what they're searching for. And then on top of that, you have your buildings that need to be certified. This third-party certification organization works hand in hand, but they're separate because you don't want to have conflict of interest, right? So that is how the whole thing works together. So if you do submit a building and somebody comes back and says, hey, no, you didn't get this point here or there, that's going to be GBCI that you're working with. And then what keeps the two of them together is LEED Online. That's kind of like when you're submitting everything for your building to get it certified, it all goes through that. And so it checks back to the reference manuals and it checks back with the certification entity, right? And so that's how those pieces all come together. So here's just some statistics for you. I'm not going to read them off. But the point is, buildings consume a ton of resources, and we don't realize it day to day. We don't realize how much we waste. We don't realize how inefficient we are. Everything can always be better, right? You want to achieve optimum efficiency. And that's the first thing you need to do before you can even get to regenerative. And so this is a step in the right direction, and it's just one stepping stone in the long road that we still have. And then I'm going to switch back to Chris for the legislative items.
Is this, yeah, just quickly on, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people aren't going to do anything until it's mandated. And probably on the slide here, the biggest impact that's coming is AB 1103, which has been delayed in implementation until January of 2014. And it's going to require that at the sale or lease of certain size buildings, that their carbon footprint be disclosed to the seller. So this is going to deeply impact the measurement and monitoring of all building systems, their utility usages, and it's going to be that next step of basically forcing people to implement some of the things we're talking about today.
So going back to the LEED guides that help you figure out which points to get for your building and tell you what's required, all that sort of thing, it's broken down into different sections. The first one that you're going to come to is sustainable sites. And they want you to look at sustainable sites because they want you to look at your building and be like, okay, is this in a hazard area? Is it hazardous to the environment? Is it hazardous to the building if it's in a floodplain? What's the slope? Is it going to, erode away into the ocean? Is it in an area that it's going to affect you need to get involved with the California Coastal Commission? All these sort of things you have to think about. It's not just about your building, it's where it is on the planet, what else is it affecting. It's all part of one giant web, right? This is what that draws attention to. And so you need development density, because you don't want to have urban sprawl. You want people to be able to bike or take the bus or walk to what they need to. You don't want them traveling far distances. It's not just about the environment, it's also about efficiency and convenience for the people that live in these communities. And if you're walking and you're out and about, you're going to have community connectivity. Neighbors are going to talk to their neighbors. People are going to reconnect. And that's important too. It may not be an environmental factor, but that's something that makes people comfortable where they live, comfortable in their communities, and willing to, communicate and work together, and that's really important. Another thing to think about, like I said, if people can take the bus, that's great. Alternative transportation, trains, all those sort of things. Of course, it's going to reduce your CO2 emissions. That's really important. But it's reducing your use on fossil fuels. Before you can get to regenerative anything, you need to reduce what you use and become more efficient. That's like the first step that you got to master. And then site development, like I said, you don't want it in a flood zone. Stormwater design. Everything eventually washes back to the ocean, through the creeks, into the lakes, through more rivers, whatever, back to the ocean, or if the lake is the end result, right? But that's where people get water. Maybe they're drinking that water, maybe they're swimming in that water, maybe they're surfing in that water, but you have to think of how all of that trickles through all the way to the end. And you have to think of that end result, okay? In another slide, I'll explain it more, but it's like the Colorado River is so important to us as a water source, and people don't realize that. They think, oh, the Colorado River's in Colorado. No, it supplies like a ton of our water, and it starts actually all the way in Wyoming. It goes through Arches National Park, if anybody's been there. It goes through Lake Mead, that's in Las Vegas. It goes through Lake Havasu, and still a ton of our drinking water comes from there. So it's all connected, and you really need to think about that water flow, where your building flow is in that water flow. Is the water percolating back into your site, or is it running off your parking lot with all the oil from the cars that leak or whatnot? So it's just very important to think of all of those. And then again, going back to the paving, if you're having a ton of paving, if your building's darkly colored, whatever, you're gonna have an urban heat island effect, and you're gonna change the climate. It doesn't have all these plants and everything to use the sunlight and process it for their own good. All the heat's gonna radiate back up, and you're gonna get a warmer spot right there. A really good example of this is if you're on the Huntington Beach Pier, walking at night. As soon as you leave the wooden pier and you hit the asphalt, the concrete, feel that difference next time you're out there. That's your urban heat island effect. Really good example. Water efficiency, going back to this one again. The first thing you want to do again, reduce your usage, right? Energy efficient toilets, urinals. If you could use reclaimed water, do it. Irrigation. The city of Irvine is a phenomenal example of this because all of their irrigation is done with purple pipe, recycled water. This is great. And then everybody in Orange County actually drinks recycled water whether they realize it or not, because all of the wastewater goes to a treatment plant in Fountain Valley where it's processed once, and then it gets pumped to a secondary treatment plant that's in Huntington Beach on Brookhurst, and that's where it actually percolates back into the aquifer. An aquifer is an underground body of water. That's your groundwater. 40 to 60% of the groundwater in Orange County is our drinking water source. Same aquifer, right? So you're drinking recycled water there. Now, the unfortunate thing is the rest of our water comes from the Colorado River, like I talked about, and Owens Valley. If anybody knows anything about Owens Valley, we say we get our water from Owens Valley because it was originally Owens Lake, but we sucked it dry. It's totally dry now to the point where they actually there's mandated dust control measures. And so what they started to do is taking water from Mono Lake. And now we have the whole issue of, okay, well, Mono Lake is below the level at which we're allowed to take water. So we're not actually taking water from Mono Lake anymore. So what are we left with? Our groundwater and the Colorado River. The Colorado River supplies water to 7 states and part of Mexico. If anything happens to the Colorado River, we're in trouble. And I don't necessarily mean something tragic, but for example, we're actually over what the amount of water that California is allotted. There are a million laws dating back to, I think, 1922 about the use of water in the Colorado River. Every state is allotted a certain amount. California is currently over their allotment. Arizona is currently under. So we are actually using Arizona's overage. How long do you think before Arizona needs the rest of their water? So these are all things to think about, and we need to diversify. And so anyway, like I said, LEED is just one first step in efficiency, and we have all that other stuff to go take care of. So that's what this whole thing is it's people don't want to just get super efficient, super perfectly energy, water, and everything environmentally perfect right away. That's scary. They don't know how to do that. And so the LEED rating system is almost like a first, not quite baby step, a bit bigger, but getting people to move in the right direction. And it keeps getting updated every couple of years, just like a building code does or whatever, so it becomes more stringent and more stringent and more stringent. And we're easing people into this environmental change because unfortunately that's the only way people are going to accept it. Because the industries need to catch up, the designers need to catch up. Owners and the general public and the people paying for these buildings need to catch up on their knowledge on how do we do this. And like Chris said, people are stuck in their own ways, old ways. They want to do stuff the way that they know how to do. And so they need to learn the new ways and get comfortable with them. And that's the main thing that this LEED rating system does. And then going back to energy, still a very important section to look at. Water is going to be the next war that we're going to have. I'm not trying to be all scary or whatever, but I mean, people are really going to start battling it out in court for water. They already have, and that's just going to get crazy. Energy, we've already made, especially since the 1970s, we've already made huge advances into renewables. I think last time I checked, Southern California Edison, the energy that they provide to their residential users is 16% renewable already, just how they generate it. So that's really great. It needs to go farther, but we're on the track already. And again, reducing at the building level how much we use in the first place is always the first step. And then the other thing that LEED allows you to do is buy green power. If you can't produce it on your site for some reason, maybe you have a building, there's a lot of trees around, you can't do solar, maybe certain things are not allowed by your jurisdiction, whether it's the city, the state, whatever. Sometimes you just can't do it, but you could actually buy the credits that way and invest money into renewable energy, and kind of, they call that a wash and say that's okay to do it that way. And I think we're on to Joseph.
Thank you, Lindsay. My name is Joseph Murphy. I work for Turner Construction. My official title is Director of Sustainable Design and Construction. That's why everybody calls me the green guy. We put this presentation together in a way that Chris was presenting the organization, USGBC itself, and explaining the rating system. Lindsay was talking about the design issues related to the LEED system. I'm, as a contractor, I'd like to talk about the issues that a contractor brings to the table and how we make the system complete. Obviously, materials and resources are key for a contractor, and this is what we have to document and prove for the owners and for the organization that we have been completing all the points that the architects and the entire team put together. Construction waste management is obviously very important. Our main goal is to divert as much as possible from landfills. Landfills are not a permanent solution, as much as everybody like to believe it, and the least amount of material winds up there, the better off we all are. So our goal is to find ways to recycle products, and LEED kind of made this very good connection, because you can see another item that has recycled contents. So in one way, we're trying to save everything from going to the landfill. On the other, we're looking at reusing those products that we have just recycled. Without the second item, the first item would become pretty lonely, because what happens at the trash yard, if you build up a lot of products, then the fire department is going to come out and say, hey, this is going to self-combust, I want it out. And they have to move it to the landfill. This is, unfortunately, the reality today. So we are encouraging all the contractors and all the small guys, the upstart companies, to do something with our recycled products. And I do have a lot of calls from these new companies, and they're asking for guidance. And this is what everybody really should do to kind of foster the companies who help us dealing with this issue and make products that are very high in recycled content. We're also trying to reuse the materials. We plan on, if we have a larger demolition, we plan on taking the materials to certain places where they can reuse in the best way possible. We have a large concrete structure that we have just recently demolished. All the rebar we took to a place where it's actually going to be recycled locally. And 100% of that rebar is going to be melted down, and rebar is going to be made out of it. So it's 100% recycled content reinforcing bar for the concrete, which probably going to come back to us to the same project where we're building the new structure. This is what we're supposed to do. just like nature, everything in nature is cyclical. We have to work out our own processes that they all do the same thing and mimic nature, so we can build and provide the need for the society and our community as needed for the new buildings. You see an item, rapidly renewable materials. This is basically anything that regrows within 10 years. And there's so many out there. Our agricultural waste products are just immense ability to tap into and bring it back to the construction. There are better and better ways to recycle these products and these materials. And I'm looking forward to, you know, one way taking 100% of that product from the agricultural team and basically provide the buildings in a very, very healthy way. Certified wood is one of my pet peeves. This is something that goes beyond our local community. This is a worldwide system. It's called FSC, Forest Stewardship Council. It's an incredibly complex program, but it also helps putting together the buildings from wood that we know is harvested in an environmentally healthy way. And these forestry organizations do spend a lot of time to figure out how is it best. There's no clear cutting allowed unless the forest is sick and there's a danger that it spreads to other areas. They have fines for companies who do something against their rules and regulations. And also, this is something that a lot of people don't understand, that once you cut down a forest, you have basically eliminated an ecosystem. And as much as we'd like to believe that we are the superior species on this planet, we still cannot build an ecosystem. So their harvesting methods is different, and they really spend a lot more time and a lot more energy to take the wood from the forest to our buildings. And that needs to be obviously rewarded, and the product is a little bit more costly. However, this is something that our construction team could help the environment, again, not just locally, but globally. Can you read that? The other major item that we do have a lot of reporting to do is the environmental quality segment. I'm going to start kind of in the middle and work my way up here. The low-emitting materials, low VOC or volatile organic compounds, is a target. We want to filter out everything that is poisoning our environment and put in gases or off-gassing, as we call it, from different glues and different materials, from mostly the furniture and the built-in wood products. And this is something that we have to check with every contractor, get their product information, and submit it to USGBC to prove that we have done our work. Increased ventilation is an important factor. Our job sites are filtered with the efficiency that a normal office building is filtered today. Our job site filtration is a minimum of MERV 8, which is a matrix, a scale from 1 to 16. And our final filters are MERV 13, so just a few notch below the best available technology today once we turn the building over to the users. So this is allowing the users to work, live, and heal and play in an environment where everything is best filtered, and it really is not going to be a problem, somebody in one corner sneezing and everybody in the other corner going to take a sick leave on the next day. Smoking is not allowed in any of the buildings. Of course, it's a building code in most states by now, but we also looked at the areas around the building where air intakes are, the entrance to the building, and there is posted signs that you shouldn't be smoking in those areas because it may get into the building. So this is something we're really keen in documenting to the USGBC. daylighting and views. I don't know if many of you worked in places where there was no window on the wall and you didn't know what part of the day was raining or was, sunshine. It's very depressing. Somehow our reptilian brain is tuned to see nature, green leaves dancing in the air, and we are so much more productive when we have the ability to look out in the window and just our minds is much more relaxed and capable of doing many things more. And this is one part of the equation which is very hard to prove to owners, the benefit of the increased efficiency. But I believe it because I lived it and I know how much more I can do in a proper environment. Innovation in design. This is only 5 credit points in the system. However, this is my pet peeve. I'm absolutely sold on the idea. This is something that USGBC brought in or brought alive because at one time it existed. People in the United States discovered reinforced concrete. They discovered steel structures for high-rise buildings. There's a lot of innovation in construction that was started in the United States, and somehow it disappeared. There were decades when it was non-existent. It went to a better place, and companies kept their innovation to themselves until they made a lot of money and some other competitor started to copy and look into how they made more money than others. So it was kind of a very interesting, secretive way of dealing with innovation. USGBC changed the game, totally put it upside down, and they introduced credit points for teams to tell USGBC what did they do on the building differently from a normal customary construction. And not only they give you credit points for that, but they also generated a database where it's all collected together, and builders from other construction companies or from other parts of the country even could go and find these resources and don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. They can find it and duplicate it at their own project level, or maybe even put a top spin on it and do something better and go back to the database and build it. And this is immensely impacting our construction industry today. There are obviously exemplary credit points, which means if you significantly overachieve a requirement, let's say your requirement is 20% for recycled content, if you produce 30% or more, then you can get an extra credit point. So this is an interesting way of kind of influencing and encouraging teams to do more than just the basics. Regional priority was something that our USGBC chapters helped the organization to develop. Every one of the chapters across the nation were asked to contribute to this and give the ideas to the USGBC team. What's important locally? What is it what in our region is very, very key to reward? So if you achieve a point, let's say in Southern California, obviously we're in the desert here. If you achieve a credit point for water, you will be rewarded with an additional credit point. And if you look at the rest of the credits, they're always something important for the local community that they were targeting. Renewable energy is another item that is probably on every one of the regions, because it's key that we harvest the renewable energy and help our buildings. To have energy transported from a long distance, it's always a huge loss. If you generate the power on your building, there is no transmission loss, and you help the rest of the utility because they don't have to build an additional power line to supply your building. So it really is helping in many different ways. kind of wanted to show the different segments that LEED now is targeting. Started with a few, but now we're basically in the entire realm of construction. Every different type of building can be rated, and they are tuned to the specific needs of these buildings or designs, where, you know, retail is very specifically high energy and high lighting need. How do you compensate, and how do you come up with the scorecard for that project? And it must be different from a healthcare project, for example. Very important also, the existing buildings, and today we call them operations and maintenance, because we really don't do any construction in existing buildings but every once in a while. However, the operation and maintenance is critical for the buildings. And there's a lot of energy that can be saved if we look at the different energy uses, do commissioning on the building, or retro commissioning if it's never been commissioned. And we do find the ways to save money for the owners in terms of operating costs. And this is actually a little bit beyond what's coming. The LEED segment is kind of over. This is about today's construction and where LEED probably going to go in the next version 4 that is coming out in a month, or even the next versions which are still under development. I don't know if you heard the acronyms. There's a lot of acronyms here. BIM, Building Information Modeling. It's basically the replacement of the blueprints with PDF documents or different basis documents. We as contractors, we don't deal with the 3D generation, but once we get it from the architects, there's a lot we can do with it. We can put intelligence to every line. We put time information, and then you can see the building up from sticks, as you've probably seen it many times. And also can assign intelligence in terms of cost of the buildings. Then you can see the cash flow of the buildings and how the price of the building increases or decreases with changes. 6-dimension models, the 6th dimension is really the document that we hand over to our owners. And some of them includes the best and latest technology. Let's say a faucet is going bad or starts dripping. The engineer, the building engineer, can just roll over that faucet. It's going to blow up the part list. It's going to show him the different little part that needs to be replaced. There's a phone number right there, and it will tell you if it's under warranty or not. So these are the things that we need to provide the new owners, because quite frankly, nobody keeps blueprints anymore, and they get lost, and there's a desperate search in an unair-conditioned space up someplace in the attic of a building. That is not where we are today. Prefabrication is also a key. Once we have these models, it's very easy to put everything together in a way that they all fit, and it's not a guesswork anymore. It's to very fine tolerance. We can allow our subcontractors and trade partners to do significant amount of work off-site, which is making it more higher quality and making it less expensive, and provides work to a lot of people who wouldn't be qualified to work in a construction site. In the hotel business, we apply all of our knowledge and put together the toilet area, the restroom area, in an enclosed building. We saran wrap everything. It's totally finished. We bring it into the building, and we make 3 connections: electrical, water, and plumbing, and take the saran wrap off of it, and we're ready to open up the building. Almost that easy. Not quite, but we're very close to that. These are the things that we can do, because when you're a contractor, you can't do 2 things. You can't be cheap enough, and you can't be fast enough. So everything that helps in either way is definitely working for us. I want to mention LEED construction. Lean is a new thinking of construction management and basically applicable to any process that you're involved with. It really is just a way of eliminating waste from our lives. And this is coming from Toyota, who started looking at their own car making process and see how they can be less expensive and higher quality. And they went through every step the car was made. And this is what we should be doing. Go through every step we do to one particular goal, to achieve a particular goal. And look at all the tasks. If something does not generate a gain or doesn't add to the value of the process, it's probably waste and it can be eliminated. So it's a very interesting process, and it's, you know, it's between soul searching and futuristic model development, but it definitely helps, and it will yield a gain to the company who takes the time to go through it. Life cycle analysis is now being built into the new LEED system. The version 4 will have a lot of relevance to that. It's basically the concept that we shouldn't be looking at the initial cost of a building, because it's just one segment. This building will be there for 50 to 100 years, depends on the technology you're using, and it will use tremendous amount of energy. Will use a lot of electricity, will use a lot of resources, and the people who are working in there, their productivity rate will be significantly impacted if we build a green building. So don't just look at the initial cost, because it's misleading. If you look at the life cycle cost, you can see not just the savings, the potential savings, but also the different systems that need to be operated and how many times they may need to be changed versus another technology that might be a benefit by not having to change it or once or twice, as opposed to many, many times some others. And again, carbon footprint accounting. This is something that we all will have to face. It will be either by decree of government or state, or by own company management. Somebody will sooner or later tell you, figure out your carbon footprint. We're working on it feverishly. We want to make sure that the construction process does not generate a lot of excessive energy use, and we don't create a lot of excess in CO2. And we're looking at our processes, and everybody should be doing the same thing, because that's the only way we're going to get there. And my question to everybody is, what are your policies? And we really should be looking at ourselves, looking into the mirror. Are we doing the right things today? Well, thank you very much for your time and attention. And I'm inviting your questions if you have.
Thank you for coming.
Couple questions that I had that I jotted down that maybe you can address. So in the residential housing industry, how many applications have you had, and how many have achieved platinum rating in the United States?
I could take this one if you want. For residential, that's actually behind commercial, because commercial buildings are the biggest users of energy by far, because everybody's at work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m., and that's the peak energy time. So LEED does have a LEED rating system for residential, but currently it's new residential. They don't have for existing residential yet, which I can't wait till that comes out, because I would really love to do it for my house. But currently, the way that you can do it for an existing building, but you have to rip everything back to the studs so that it's so redone that it's like a new building. Because they really, you know, take everything to a T as far as your insulation, as far as your roofing material, whether it's a cool roof, all that sort of thing. So the LEED for residential system is so new. I do not have numbers for you yet. They're not even released. But anyway, that's where that's going. They're heading there. They're not as far as I would like them to be, but I always want to be 10 steps ahead of everything else, right? So.
The most popular category right now is existing buildings. And there's more certifications or registrations for existing buildings than there are for any of all the other LEED rating systems combined. And right now they're certifying about 1.4 million square feet per day. So that's where all the major activity is right now.
The Irvine company alone has millions of square feet of existing buildings that they've actually applied the existing building rating system to and redone. And, you know, they're a developer, an owner, operator. They're not, and I mean, they're kind of a good old boys club to a certain degree. They've been here since the beginning, right? They are like everybody else. They want to do things the way they've always been done, but then they saw the numbers come back, how much energy savings they have. They're landlords of so many different, you know, people that live here. They have residential properties or of different companies, and when they see the numbers come back and the energy savings, the water savings, all the numbers dropping, that's what they want to see is more profit, and that's what's really driving this.
Do you have another one? Oh.
So LEED 4 is this big change from what I heard, and I think that might be interesting. Can you speak a little bit about it, or what you, I think there was like an overarching approach that was taken to that might have been a little bit different, and I'm trying to figure out what that was, or.
So you're asking about the changes for LEED 4, version 4?
Yes. So not everyone is a huge LEED supporter, and I think that LEED was trying to address some of the detractors with that new rating system. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
I'm going to try to answer this.
Get closer or grab this.
The LEED 4 system. Does this work? That's working. The LEED 4 system was delayed the entire year because of different issues, but mainly there's a lot of opposition. There is a new concept, they call it chemicals of concern. When I used to go to school, they called them poison, because when you ingest it or inhale it or stay close to them, they will kill you. So today it's not PC anymore, so we call them chemicals of concern. And unfortunately, there is a lot of building products that include very harsh chemicals. And if you involved with the construction industry, it's a very interesting parallel from like 30 years ago when everything was made out of either steel or wood. Today there's a lot of plastics and a lot of different applications that coming from many, many different areas of the chemical industry. And it's a very interesting kind of controversial situation, because we asked the chemical industry to help us build buildings faster. And they provided us with all kinds of materials. And they're out there today. And now today we're asking the chemical industry to turn on a dime and eliminate all the nasties from the products. And it's not going to happen. And unfortunately, they're not taking this lightly. They're not taking this as a progress. They're taking this as an attack. And I don't think this was the intention. It never is. USGBC and the LEED system is open and transparent. We want to bring the attention of the users of the buildings, the designer of the buildings, and everybody who is involved with the industry to provide the products and look at the environment that we're creating. So it has become a very contentious issue, and there's a lot of attacks against LEED. You've probably seen a number of news items, but I think the industry is turning around. Just like when we did the VOC issue, everybody said, there's no way we can get a glue that is low in VOC. Today, there is no high VOC product on the market because nobody would buy it. And we already see companies who are signing on and creating these health product declarations or environmental product declarations, which will be in the new system. And they're filling this out and they're helping moving forward. And this is what we try to do, to make sure that we have a clean bill of health to the owner and the users of the buildings. I hope I responded to your question.
So we have time for one more question, this gentleman right here. And then, Chris, they can come talk to you at your booth, correct?
Oh, certainly, yes.
Okay, great. So if there's any other questions beyond this, you can go inside the Sunshot Innovation Pavilion, and the U.S. Green Building Council has a booth inside.
Thank you, Joseph. When you go to subcontractor for production of larger submodules like bathrooms or other major components, are the subcontractors held to LEED standards to reduce waste production in their production of the submodules?
Yes, everybody in the contracting chain is required by a contract, and they all make a plan on reusing their waste and how to minimize waste. Actually, minimizing the waste is the goal. Once you created it, it's harder to deal with it. But yes, everybody is, even the products off-site have a very, very defined product cycle, and minimizing the waste programs are required from contractors.
Thank you guys for coming. We're over in booth number 72, which is right inside the front doors. And so thank you very much. Appreciate it.